Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my Guru Dev has opened my eyes with a salve of knowledge. So there's a couple of verses I like to say at the beginning. Just there's a little bit of Sanskrit. It says here, Maline mochanam pungsam jalasnanam dine dine sakrit git tamritam snanam sangsara malanashanam. One may cleanse himself daily by taking a bath in water, but if one takes a bath even once in the sacred Ganges water of Bhagavad Gita, for him, the dirt of material life is altogether vanquished. So, as we go through life, we're always getting dirty. And we take a bath to cleanse off the dust. But Bhagavad Gita will cleanse the dust from your heart. Outwardly, Bhagavad Gita is a book about war and peace. But the true message of the Bhagavad Gita is a universal message. And it's also a personal message because it helps us cleanse ourselves from the dirt of material life and our sinful attitudes. Gita Sugita Kartavya Kemanye Shastra Vishtarai Ya Svayam Padmanabhasya Mukha Padmad Vinishrita. Because the Gita is spoken by Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one need not read any other Vedic literature. One need only attentively and regularly hear and read Bhagavad Gita. In the present age, people are so absorbed in mundane activities that it's not possible for them to read all the Vedic literature, but this is not necessary. This one book, Bhagavad Gita, will suffice because it is the essence of all Vedic literatures, and especially because it is spoken by God himself. Now, few other scriptures actually make this claim. And as we approach the end of the 9th chapter, we can see that there's really quite a sea change in what's being presented. If Krishna tells us about the soul and the nature of the Atma and the Paramatma, and he discusses karma and yoga and so many other chapters. In the 9th chapter, he really comes out and begins a deeper argument to Arjuna, where he's explaining the meaning of divine love. And the Bhagavad Gita is very popular in India and has been traditionally, especially the early chapters, because anyone who's interested in a deeper look at spirituality will find in those early chapters a very well-constructed argument and a very clear view or insight into the nature of the soul. But many of these readers of the Gita leave off their reading around the 6th chapter or so because they find that when Krishna begins to identify himself as Bhagavan, as God, this becomes too difficult to accept. At some point, Krishna explains, I'm God himself. I descended upon this earth. And my advice to you, Arjuna, is to surrender to God. So people don't mind it as long as the idea of God is very, very vague. But when it comes to accepting Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they find this very difficult and extreme and begin to feel, well, this is sectarianism. Of course, if one of the other great religions, Islam, Judaism, Christianity, makes that kind of theological claim or point that one should surrender to God, it's not so difficult to swallow as long as the idea of divinity is a very general one. But when confronted with the Krishna conception, it becomes very difficult for people to surrender. They don't like the idea that God is a person, really. Theoretically, he may be a personal God. The God of Christianity is supposed to be a person, but he's a person with no personality. Tennessee Williams wrote an interesting play called The Night of the Iguana, where the main character is a fallen priest. He's been defrocked, and so he becomes a tour guide in Mexico. And at one point, he's asked, why did you leave the faith? And he said, well, it occurred to me that God is a senile delinquent, because he's just this old man in the sky who plays with people's lives and makes their lives difficult. And who really wants a senile delinquent? And in the West, you can see the senile delinquent of God depicted on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel by Michelangelo as an old man with a beard who's reaching out and touching the hand of Adam, as if passing the torch to a new generation. Adam is young and virile. God is this old man with a beard. And I remember when I read that play by Tennessee Williams, which is interesting to me because I was living in Puerto Vallarta at the time where they filmed that movie, and we went to visit the place where Richard Burton acted out the role of the whiskey priest. And I remember I was also reading the Bhagavad Gita at the time, and I thought, well, the Bhagavad Gita gives us a different picture of God. He's not a senile delinquent at all. He's a juvenile delinquent. And everybody loves the juvenile delinquent. The juvenile delinquent is the most popular character in fiction and movies, the young boy who does mischievous things. And so who is Krishna but Makan Chor? He loves to steal butter. And if you ever have little children in your house, little children, they love to steal butter. They're fascinated with butter because it's delicious and you can put it on everything. And mommy puts butter on the toast. And then the little boy starts thinking, well, why put this on the toast? I'll just eat it the way it is. And they grabbed a stick of butter and began eating. So this is Krishna. Krishna is not a senile delinquent who makes the lives of other people miserable. He's reality the beautiful, dancing and playing his flute. And yes, stealing butter and sometimes being mischievous. But this is a very clear-cut concept of divinity. God has a personality. What is his personality? He's playful. He loves jokes. He's beautiful. He plays the flute. So this is the Krishna conception of divinity as reality, the beautiful. If you think about the idea of gods, the gods are always doing something. Jove or Thor handles the thunderbolt, and the God of the Old Testament smites the earth with a curse, or turns Lot into a pillar of salt. Or Brahma, the creator, he creates the world. The Old Testament God creates the world in 7 days. They're always busy doing something. Indra is the god of the rain. Vayu is the god of wind and hurricanes. But what does Krishna do? Shiva is the destroyer. He destroys the universe at the end of the kalpa, at the end of the cycle, in the Mahapralaya. But what exactly does Krishna do? Well, he doesn't have any job description. In fact, he doesn't do anything. So this is the proof that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, because all the other gods are busy with some kind of work, but Krishna is above work. And I don't know why this is, but this conception of God is difficult for most people to handle. Then there's the karma kanda idea of divinity, which is, in a way, it's kind of similar to the Old Testament view or Judaism, that God creates the law, and the law is everything. And so you must follow the law. But Krishna is above the law. And he makes that clear in many different parts of the Mahabharata, where he breaks the rules. People don't like it that Krishna breaks the rules. Why did he kill Karna? Of course, Krishna doesn't kill Karna, it's Arjuna, but here's Karna, the great tragic hero of the Mahabharata. A very sympathetic character, he's misunderstood. And yet, he doesn't get a fair fight. When his chariot wheel is stuck in the mud, that's when Krishna tells Arjuna, okay, now this is the time. Go kill Karna. And Arjuna says, well, we're breaking the rules of war. But Krishna is not bound by morality. So I think this is kind of an interesting point, that in the highest sense, when we talk about bhakti, we talk about something which is above the ordinary laws of dharma. The devotees of Krishna are naturally dharmic. The devotees of Krishna, they love the principles of dharma, like nonviolence and charity and kindness and humility and tolerance. We love these things. But a great devotee of Krishna is not bound by morality. And sometimes in our preaching, we think, well, these people over here promote morality. Let's make common cause with them. They don't like some particular aspect of sinful activity, say gambling. There's people who want to abolish gambling. So because not gambling is part of our creed, let's make common cause with the non-gambling section of society. Or these people here are vegetarians, so let's go out and promote vegetarianism. Or these people over here, they believe that the Vedic universe is important and we should promote some of the concepts of the Vedic universe. But we're not moralists. And what you will find if you make common cause with moralists is they have a particular point of view, which is not ours. So the idea that Krishna makes the law and then he's bound by the law, this is found in the Karma Kanda and also in Judaic religion. Once God sets the world in motion and makes the laws of the universe, even he has to follow the law. So our position should be to follow the law. And if we just follow the law, then we'll be good devotees. The problem is it's easier to follow the law than it is to surrender. It's easier to be a good vegan than it is to surrender to God. I avoid certain kinds of food and that makes me righteous. But the path to self-realization is not through justice. It's not through following the law. It's through mercy. I've told the story before where a man dies and goes to heaven, and St. Peter is waiting at the gates. And he says, all right, what's your name? My name is Jones. Jones, okay, there's Johnson, Johnson. Sorry, your name is not in the book. And the man says, well, talk to God. And St. Peter says, well, I'm sorry, I can't bother him. He's watching a football game and he can't decide between Manchester United and Barcelona right now. The fans of Barcelona, they're all praying to God, and the fans of Manchester United, they're also praying to God. He's busy. Then the man says, no, talk to God, come on. My soul is in play here. It's a question of life or death. All right. St. Peter goes and he rings the bell and talks to God. And God says, what is it? I'm watching the game. And the man says, well, there's a man at the gate. St. Peter says, there's a man at the gate here. So is his name in the book? No, his name's not in the book. Well, go back, find out, what's his situation. So the man, St. Peter goes back and he says, is there something that you can say on your behalf? And the man says, yeah, every Sunday at church, I gave $10. I put $10 in the collection plate every Sunday without fail. Go tell God. And St. Peter goes back. God's watching the game. Now it's 1-0. Manchester's winning. He has to think, does he let Barcelona have a goal here? And St. Peter comes up to him and says, what, again? Yeah. What's the story? Well, the man says he gave $10 every Sunday in the church. Do you remember him? And God says, give him his $10 back and tell him to go to hell. Give him back his $10 and tell him to go to hell. So what the point is, you follow the Vedic rituals, you do your sacrifice, you do the karma kanda, you're appealing to the law. You're thinking that if I follow the law, there must be justice for me. But the problem is, however you follow the law, it's not that by following the law correctly, God is bound by the law to do what you say. You're up against the infinite. So it's a question of mercy. As Srila Maharaj used to say, mercy is above justice. Shakespeare said the quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven. Or Srila Maharaj used to talk about the Chataka bird, only taking the water that falls from the sky. So the idea is you offer your life to God, and you can't depend on the law to say, okay, Pranashish Prabhu chanted 16,000 holy names every day from Monday to Friday, and therefore the door will open and he will be admitted into Vrindavan as an eternal gopi in the association of the Lord. There's no guarantee. And it's very easy to think about becoming a gopi in the service of Radharani, but really we should be happy to get a situation as a grass or a rock in Vrindavan where the gopis might step on our heads, or Krishna himself and a snake where Krishna might dance on our head as he danced on the head of the serpent Kalia. So the point is, we're dependent on mercy and not justice. So then what is the value of becoming a moralist? And the other risk that we run as moralists is we begin to judge others. We begin to think of ourselves as superior. I drink coffee, you drink tea. Tea has less caffeine, so therefore you are more exalted than I am, because I'm more addicted to a more potent form of intoxication. Srila Prabhupada hated tea. There's a famous story of how he came home one day. I don't know if this is a true story, but it was repeated so many times by my godbrothers, and it seems to be in character. So one day, Abhay Charan Dey returns home from the pharmacy on Sitakanta Banerjee Lane, and his wife, Radha, says, look at this, look at all the tea cookies I have. And Srila Prabhupada says, where did you get those tea cookies? Interesting. Where is my set of Bhagavatams? Oh, those old books? You mean those dusty old books? Oh, I was cleaning, and I have to tell you, when I picked up one of those books, there was so much dust that I was coughing. And I slapped it again and again, and more dust came. And I thought, there's a man. This is really good. You'll like this. There's a man on the corner with a little grocery store, and he has a scale. And if you put something on this side of the scale, he'll give you the same weight on the other side of the scale in cookies. So I took your books and I put them on, and they were heavy. And the man gave me a lot of cookies for those books. And according to the legend or the Prabhupada story, he was very upset and maybe got angry, he left his wife, he never wanted to see her again, he took sannyas. I'm not sure how the story goes. The point is, Srila Prabhupada did not like tea. And you can see in his, prospectus, the rules that he writes for the League of Devotees. One of the rules is no tea. Now, on the other hand, there's devotees we know and love from China to Thailand to Ukraine to Russia who drink tea. And why? Because they discovered that Govinda Maharaj used to like to drink a little bit of tea. He would call it hot water. He would turn to one of his disciples like Rishabdi or Acharya Maharaj and say, bring me some hot water. and they knew, okay, we're preparing a little bit of tea here for Maharaj. And it has been pointed out that after you reach a certain age, there's some rules that don't always apply. I'm 68 years old. If I have a little bit of coffee, it gives me some energy so I can speak. Otherwise, I'm pretty tired. So Govinda Maharaj used to drink a little bit of tea. So is he following the rules? Or do we think, sometimes the rules, how important are certain rules? And then if I judge someone, let's say I'm a new disciple over at the Bombay temple, and I say, well, okay, I saw Pranashish walk into the house with his shoes on. And you're supposed to take your shoes off. I say Pranashish because he's a friend. Everybody's a friend here. Tapanandini, Anantashesh, Vrindavan Chandra there in Odessa. Thank you for tuning in, Vrindavan Chandra. We're very happy to see you. And we hope everything is going fine for you. And Nadia Sundari there in Lviv. Our heart is with you. We love you all very much. But so I can look at someone like Pranashish and say, well, he had his shoes on. Never mind that it's freezing. Never mind that there's snow. Never mind that the heat is not working in the house, right? The important thing for me is whether he wears shoes or not, because that will determine whether he goes back to Godhead. So is that the really important thing? Are we moralists in that sense? No, we're not. So if I take a moralist position, it will be very easy for me to find some fault or some problem with everyone. And this makes me feel good because I'm the guy who gave the $10 at the collection plate on Sunday. And I know I'm going back to Godhead, but maybe you're not going to make the cut. You're not going to make the grade because you're not perfectly following all the rules. But this is not what Krishna is talking about. Now, this is my preamble. I'm sorry that it takes so much time, but I'm warming up. So here in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yat karoshi yat ashnasi, yat jahoshi dadasi yat. Yat tapasyasi konteya, tat kurushva mad arpana. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that as an offering for me. Don't do the austerity so you can lose weight. Don't do the austerity because that's what your yoga teacher says. Don't eat wheatgrass because that's the vegan diet of the week. Do it for me. This is the same point he's making again and again to Arjuna. So I found this is a nice, I'm going to read a little bit. This is a nice conversation that Srila Prabhupada had with George Harrison, the famous Beatle. Right now the Beatles are back in vogue because there's a new documentary about them. But George Harrison met with Srila Prabhupada a number of times, and he was asking, what should I do to be more spiritual? And Prabhupada told him, you do not require to change your position. You remain in your position. If you're talented as a musician, you remain as a musician, as an artist. And whatever you are, as an ordinary worker, a medical man, a scientist, a philosopher, whatever you may be, you stay in your position. There's no hard and fast rules. But if you want success in life, he says, Atapumbir Dvija Shreshta, Varnash Rama Vibhagasha, Svanushitasya dharmasya. Everyone has his occupational duty, but Sangshidir Hari Toshanam. Try to satisfy Hari. If by your talent and by your work, if you can satisfy Krishna, that's success. So remain in your position. There's no need of changing your position. Svanushtita. Remain in your position. From that position, you try to satisfy Krishna. Then everything is success. And Prabhupada says, that is Sanksidhir Haritoshnam. He says there's many other verses like that. He's talking to George Harrison and also Ravi Shankar. Idang hipungsas tapasa shutasya va shvishtasya suktasya chabudi datayo avichuto ta kavibir nirupito jad uttam shloka gunanuvarnanam. Uttama shloka is another name of Krishna. He says, so by your musical talent, if you simply glorify Krishna, then your life is successful. This is Krishna consciousness. So there's no change that you have to become a sannyasi. You have to give up your profession or become something else. No, remain in your position. But with your talent, try to satisfy Krishna. Try to glorify Krishna. Then your talent is successful. It doesn't matter if you're a musician or a warrior, a great soldier like Arjuna. He says he was a great soldier, a warrior, a fighter, and you're a musician. So if somebody thinks, I'm a musician, by singing nicely, Krishna will be more satisfied. No, that's not the idea, but dedicate it to Krishna. Dedicate your fight to Krishna if you're a fighter. Krishna tells Arjuna, you're my great devotee. But what did he do? He fought with his own kinsman against his desire, against his will. Arjuna doesn't want to fight, but Krishna says, satisfy me. So anything you do, it doesn't matter, but do it for Krishna. This is confirmed in the Gita. And here Srila Prabhupada quotes the verse from the 9th chapter. Yad karoshi yadashnasi yad juhosi dadasi yat tapasyasi konteya tad kurushva madarpanam. He says, do it for me. This is the secret of Krishna consciousness. Try to satisfy Krishna from your position. Then your life is successful. Your profession is successful. Everything is successful. So there's Srila Prabhupada commenting on 27th verse. And in the purport, in his translation here, he says, so it's the duty of everyone to mold his life in such a way that he will not forget Krishna in any circumstance. Everyone has to work for the maintenance of his body and soul together, and Krishna recommends herein that one should work for him. Everyone has to eat something according to live, so he should accept the remnants of foodstuffs offered to Krishna. Any civilized man has to perform some religious ceremony. Krishna says, do it for me. This is called archan. Everyone has a tendency to give something in charity. Krishna says, give it to me. Nowadays, people are very much inclined to meditational practice, which is not practical in this age. But if anyone practices meditating on Krishna 24 hours a day by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra around his beads, he's surely the greatest meditator and the greatest yogi, the Mahayogi, as substantiated by the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna says, this is how you become free from karma. Now, karma is a terrible thing. If we think about war is a is a terrible thing, but it's It's related to karma. Right now, all over the world, there's slaughterhouses where millions and millions of animals are being killed without any remorse, without any mercy. And then people eat the meat. How can that not have a violent result? If you're killing and killing and killing animals, and then to relax, you're eating their meat and then drinking their blood. And then on the television, you're watching violent movies about people killing people. How will you not have war? How is it possible that your society will not be saturated with violence as a karmic reaction to that? But Krishna is saying here, whatever you do, whether you're following the rules of the Vedas or performing worldly action, whatever you eat or drink, whatever austerities you perform, do it in such a way that it becomes an offering to me. And you can't offer the results of violence to Krishna. So automatically you have to quell your violent urge, stop killing. Then you can know peace. Again, war and peace in this world is relative. On a very peaceful day, you can go into a garden and see very beautiful, quiet, peaceful plants. And it will have a peaceful consequence to your soul, meditating on the beautiful garden. But what's happening underneath the ground? The roots of those plants are fighting with each other. Every plant is fighting with another plant to get some sunshine. The ones who are successful live. The other ones are crowded out and die. So even a peaceful garden is involved in a hard struggle for existence. The idea that we can have a peaceful, tranquil life in this world, it's an illusion, because there's birth, death, old age, and disease, and in the end, we die. So it's tragic to see that people are losing their homes and everything, and then walking the streets with nothing but the clothes on their backs. But it was an illusion in the first place to believe that you can have a happy, tranquil life in this material world. Everything in this world ultimately ends in death. So why not take advantage of the advice given in the Bhagavad Gita and become free from karma and try to develop your spiritual life? And this is what Krishna is offering. He says, if you do this, Shubha Shubha Phalar Evam Mokshase Karma Bandhanat, you become free from karma. Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma Vimukto Mam Upaishyasi. So this is real sannyas. And Srila Prabhupada makes the point about what he calls Yukta Vairagya. He says one who acts in Krishna consciousness under superior direction is called yukta. This is connected with the word yoga. The technical term is yukta vairagya. And this is explained by Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, where he says, Anasakta Sivashayam Yatartam Upayunjataha Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yukta Vairagyam Uchate. He says, Rupa Goswami says that as long as we're in this material world, we have to act. We cannot cease acting. So it's also an illusion to think that you can sit on a mountaintop and renounce all activity, or go to an ashram and become completely free from activity. You must act. It's part of life. Rupa Goswami affirms this. But he says, if actions are performed and the fruits are given to Krishna. That's called Yukta Vairagya. And actually situated in this kind of renunciation, such activity clears the mirror of the mind. And as the actor gradually makes progress in spiritual realization, becomes completely surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so this is the path to true liberation. And Krishna says, I don't envy anyone. Samoham sarva bhuteshu, name dveshyo stinapriya. Krishna doesn't support Manchester United, and he doesn't support Liverpool, and he doesn't support Barcelona necessarily. He's not interested in the happenings within this material world. The living souls have freedom. It's curious because by practicing freedom from God, by practicing freedom from religion, by becoming independent from any form of surrender, we actually become enslaved in the illusion of this material world, whereby we're forced to act according to the impulses of the senses and the three modes of material nature. On the other hand, surrender will set you free. This is what Krishna says here. Mukti means freedom. Vimukto mam upashyasi. Sannyasa yoga yuktatma vimukto mam upashyasi. By this form of renunciation and surrender, by giving up your independence, you actually become free. So by becoming a slave to Krishna, you realize the ultimate freedom. And by exercising absolute independence and freedom, you become a slave to the senses. Krishna says, I'm equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion as a friend is in me, and I am also a friend to him. So by surrender, by becoming a friend of Krishna, you become one with the Absolute. You become one with God in the sense that your interest is one. Prabhupada says, the very phrase Krishna consciousness suggests that those who are in such consciousness are living transcendentalists situated in him. The Lord says here distinctly, Mai te, they are in me. Naturally, as a result, the Lord is also in them. This is reciprocal. This also explains the words, Ye yata mam prapadyante tangstataiva bhajamyaham. Whoever surrenders unto me, proportionately, I take care of him. This transcendental reciprocation exists because both the Lord and the devotee are conscious. When a diamond is set in a golden ring, it looks very nice. The gold is glorified, and at the same time, the diamond is glorified. The Lord and the living entity eternally glitter. And when a living entity becomes inclined to the service of the Supreme Lord, he looks like gold. The Lord is like a diamond, and so this combination is very nice. Now, here, there's a very nice verse that comes up, which is, it's curious, it's an important verse. And that's verse 30, which gets back to what I was saying a little bit earlier. And that was, we're not moralists. And this is kind of the point that I wanted to make today with reference to the 30th verse of the Bhagavad Gita. And I know I've been speaking for a while, but bear with me because I think this is kind of interesting. And this is the 30th verse. My goal is to finish the 9th chapter today. The 30th verse is a very powerful shloka. It says, Api chet sudaracharo bhajate mam ananyabak sadur eva samantavya samyag vyavasito kisaha. So this is a very curious verse because it says that a devotee may be involved in activities that don't go with the scriptures. And that's I'm understating here. He says sudaracharo. Dura means bad, like Duryodhan, Dura. And achar is your action. So a bad actor, bad action. Su intensifies the expression. So it means really bad, sudaracharo. And api means even so. So api chat sudaracharo, it means even if one is involved in very sinful actions, even if one commits the most abominable action, if he's engaged in devotional service, he's considered saintly because he's properly situated in his determination. And of course, in Prabhupada's translation, he says engaged in devotional service, but it's ananya bhakti. And ananya bhakti is very special bhakti. It means unalloyed devotional service, absolute devotional service. And then it says sadur eva. He's really a saint, even though he's doing these things. Externally, a person may be seen to commit many sins, but if he's exclusively given to my devotion, he should be considered most pure, a saint. Whatever he does cent percent rightly. So, of course, we can always use the example of Arjuna killing Karna. That's a good example. But Srila Sridhar Maharaj has a curious comment on this. And he notes that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a dream about this verse. He was thinking about it. What's the meaning of this? Apichat Sudaracharo. And he says one day, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was dreaming. And in his dream, he's chanting the holy name of Krishna and wandering in the sky. And suddenly he found that he's near Jamalaya, which is the land of Lord Yamaraj, the Lord of Death, where he holds court for judging the sinners of this world. And he found there's Brahma, Narada, Shiva, and others, and they're discussing with Yamaraj the meaning of these two shlokas spoken by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, but they couldn't solve the problem. They couldn't find the proper meaning of the shlokas. Externally, a person may be seen to commit many sins, but if he's exclusively given to my devotion, he should be considered most pure, a saint. And the next verse follows the same idea. He says, Kipram Bhavaji Dharmatma, Sasvach Chantam Nigachchati, Konteya Pratijani, he Name Bhakta Pranashyati. Pranashyati means destroyed or ruined. So Krishna says such a devotee is never ruined. His sincerity is invincible. And he will soon overcome whatever kind of anartha or bad behavior is visible there and will be completely dharmatma. He will achieve real peace in this lifetime. And it will be everlasting peace. So he says, O son of Kunti, Konteya Pratijani he, tell everyone, declare this boldly, that such an apparent sinner is a great saint, and that he will never be defeated. The exclusive devotee is transcendental to piety and sinfulness. So this gets back to what I was saying before about morality. We're not moralists. We may find that some people support a particular moral position, and we find congruence with that moral position. They form an anti-gambling society. So we think, yes, I'm an anti-gambler. Let me join this society. But you will find that their conception is not the Krishna conception. The Krishna conception is above mundane morality, and the exclusive devotee is transcendental to piety and sinfulness. So one who is engaged in the Lord's exclusive devotion, or ananya bhajan, Srila Sridhar says, has been defined by the Lord in his own words, sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. My exclusive devotee is one who gives up all ideas of dharma, all different phases of duties, and surrenders to my feet, accepting only his duty to me. And so, how then, having already surpassed all phases of duties and surrendering to the Lord, how can that exclusive devotee further seen to be dutiful or an externally pious man? This is an anomaly, Srila Sridhar Maharaj says. So if you've already given up all dharma and therefore realized the highest, why would you be defined as Kipram Bhavati Dharmatma, or a dharmic person? So this is going on in the dream of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And so Yamaraj, Brahma, and Narada, they're trying to debate this point, but they couldn't arrive at any solution. If someone's already a Ananya Bhakta, how can they become righteous in the near future when they've already abandoned all kinds of duties, either righteous or unrighteous, in order to exclusively surrender to the feet of the Supreme Lord? So Yamaraj, Narada, Brahma, they couldn't find the solution, so they sent for Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who they noticed was moving in the sky and taking the name of the Lord. And they said, well, he's a pure devotee. He's not an ordinary devotee. He has deep knowledge of the scriptures, so let him come and explain these verses of the Bhagavad Gita. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur was invited and went there, and he gave the meaning. He said, Apichat Sudaracharo Bhajate Mamananya Bhakt, despite the outer practices, the exclusive devotee, the Ananya Bhakta, is to be accepted, mantavya, as a 100% sadhu. So the conclusion is that one who can realize this, who declares that an exclusive devotee of Krishna is a saint, regardless of his outer practice, is really saying that he will become Dharmatma. And so the point is, if you can look at a person whose external activities may not be entirely consonant with your view of the law or your view of the ritual, if you can see a devotee who apparently externally is not following all the Vedic Dharma, and you can see that person and think, he's a real saint, then you become saintly. So this is why Krishna tells Arjuna, take advantage of this and boldly declare to the public that my devotee who gives himself wholly unto me can never come to ruination, even if he may be seen to be outwardly doing something wrong. he will be saved. The successful life is assured. By this declaration, you will get the benefit of becoming righteous and have the chance of attaining eternal spiritual peace. So, the capacity to consider devotees of Krishna as free from fault, this is a very important point. Ordinary dharma, it means morals, duties, your patriotic duty to your country, your duty to your mother, your father, society, humanity. Now, if you neglect those things, people will think that you're sinful. But if you neglect those things, but keep a straight relationship towards Krishna, you'll be free of any fault. So we look around at our friends, the other devotees, and we see that as beginners in devotional service, we have many bad tendencies in our behavior. But as we mature, these different anarthas and bad behaviors will disappear. But some undesirable behavior may continue for some time. Don't look at that and then criticize the other devotees, because then the poison will come to you. By considering the faults of other devotees, the faults will come to us. By chewing the poison in his body, the poison will come to me. So try to avoid criticizing those who are under the charge of Krishna. This is the real purport of this verse. Rupa Goswami gives the example that, I don't know if you've ever been to India, but if you bathe in the Ganges water may be dark brown. It may externally appear to be very dirty, but the outward filthiness of mud and bubbles and foam, that doesn't change the purifying capacity of the Ganges water. So a Vaishnava may appear to be a little greedy, money hungry, or angry, or physically he may be blind or deaf or lame, but the saintly character of a Vaishnava is independent of his mental or physical characteristics. During the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there was a Brahmana at Kurmakshetra, Vasudev Vipra, and he was a leper. And his skin was covered with open sores. And those open sores were occupied by worms. But if a worm fell on the ground from one of his sores, he would pick the worm back up and put it in the sore because he didn't want the worms to die. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced him. He didn't look at that man and think, oh, this man is filthy, he's dirty, he's from a lower caste, he's untouchable. But no, he welcomed him and embraced him. And so wherever we see the quality of Vaishnavism or a true saintly devotedness, there can be no contamination. And not only should we forgive the apparent contamination, but proclaim the devotees as being on the highest level of transcendentalism. I was thinking sometimes when it's the disappearance day of Narottam Das Thakur or Bhaktivinoda Thakur or Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj or Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur or Sridhar Maharaj or Srila Prabhupada or Govinda Maharaj. we sing the song Ye Anilo Prema Dhamma, where we say, where are the great souls? What happened to Rupa Goswami? Where's Sri Damodar? Where is Lokanath? Where's Jiva Goswami? Where are they today? Why aren't they with us now? We need their guidance. We need their help. But in my own lifetime, I've known great souls who dedicated their entire life to Krishna consciousness, like Chidananda Prabhu, who later became Siddhanti Maharaj, or Shrutashravan Prabhu, who became Vaishnava Maharaj. And now my old friends who passed away, and we think perhaps they even achieved a higher place. Perhaps they went to Goloka Vrindavan. Perhaps they were reborn again in a devotee family. I don't know. But when I sing a song of separation from the devotees like that, I think of them. I think of my old friends who were so dedicated to Krishna consciousness. And back in the day, when we were friends, maybe they would have an argument over how much gasoline to put in their motorcycle. So these are apparently mundane things. And later we can criticize so-and-so because he took money from the temple, or so-and-so because he broke something trivial. But now those devotees are no longer with us. They're with God. They're absorbed in Krishna consciousness on a higher plane. So then why should I judge other devotees while they're still alive, while they're still with us? We need to be able to see even our friends and God brothers as realized souls, as higher saints. And that will do us much more good than if we think, well, this one only chants 15 rounds a day, or that one over there believes in sorcery, or whatever the anarthas might be. It's very important for us to avoid criticizing the other devotees. After all, real devotees of Krishna are something like 1 in a million. So, Srila Sridhar points out that mercy is above justice, affection, love, beauty, charm, and harmony. These are above all, and this is the absolute conception of the ultimate reality, the Krishna conception. So we shouldn't look for power or knowledge or mystic perfection, but how to find ourselves in the service of reality, the beautiful. So Krishna says, Mam hi parta hipashritya ye pishu papayonaya strio vaishyas tata shudras te pijanti param gatim. He says, those who surrender to me, even if they're low-born, papa yonaya, papa means sin, and yoni means the vagina. So if they're born from sin, low-born, strio vaishyas tata shudras, including, to be very specific, it says including women, businessmen, shudras, workers, tepi janti param gatim, they reach the supreme abode. So there's no discrimination here. This is not a question of you becoming qualified by following certain rules and regulations, by serving some technology or a technique or a process, and then becoming divine. And the more you're in the mode of goodness, the better off you are. So we're going to criticize everyone who's not in the mode of goodness. This is not what Krishna is saying. Prabhupada says everyone is eligible for the supreme destination. In the Bhagavatam, it's stated that even the lowest, who are called dog eaters, can be purified by association with a pure devotee. So Krishna says here, this is a universal conception. It doesn't matter if you're a worker, a Shudra, Kshatriya, Brahmana, women, men, dog eaters. The process of devotional service or bhakti is so strong that the pure devotee of the Lord can enable people of any class to attain the highest perfection of life. Kim punar brahmana punya. And then, okay, if that's true of people who have a dark past, how much more so should that be true for those who claim to be brahmanas? How much more so is this of the righteous brahmanas, the devotees and the saintly kings? If this is available to everyone, even the untouchables, then what about the kings and the Brahmins? They should even be more exalted. Therefore, having come to this temporary, miserable world, engage in loving service to me. So then Krishna comes to this shloka at the end of the chapter, and this is a great shloka. He'll repeat the shloka later. Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam evaishasi yukvaivam atmanam atmamam matparayana. Matparayana means become devoted to me. And look at how many times he says mam, manmana, mad bhakto, madhyaji, mam namaskuru, mam evaishasi. So I said at the beginning, a lot of people are uncomfortable when Krishna comes out and he says, this book, the Bhagavad Gita, it's about me, I'm Bhagavan. And Bhagavan says, surrender to God, Krishna. So he says, engage your mind in always thinking of me, become my devotee, offer obeisances to me and worship me, being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. So it says in this verse, it's clearly indicated that Krishna consciousness is the only means of being delivered from the clutches of the material world. The 7th and 8th chapters of the Gita explain pure devotional service free from speculative knowledge, mystic yoga, and fruitive activities. So normally, because we're involved in this hard struggle for existence in the material world, any conception of God or religion seems to get mixed with knowledge, because knowledge is power. Knowledge helps us control the world, and we want knowledge and power. And yoga seems to be a good method for attaining some kind of knowledge or power. But Krishna in the 7th and 8th chapters, he's leaving that behind gradually. Here in the 9th chapter, he's promoting pure devotional service, Ananya Bhakti. And he's explaining that through Ananya Bhakti, you become transcendental to Jnana Shunya Bhakti, or devotion mixed with knowledge, Jnana Mishra Bhakti, Bhakti mixed with knowledge, Karma Mishra Bhakti, Bhakti mixed with karma. He says, leave all these things behind. Don't make love dependent on some kind of transaction, but throw yourself into the infinite completely. And don't waste your energy for anything else. Utilize your energy for the Krishna conception of Godhead. So as devotees in this little fellowship that we have where we read the Bhagavad Gita together, we try to make some progress in this line with the help of Guru and Vaishnava. And we also ask our friends to try to embrace this life, because the fulfillment of our life, the fulfillment of every particle, every atom of our existence can be found in surrender to Krishna. And that's the message of Bhagavad Gita 9th chapter. It says here, thus end the purports to the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The next chapter is about the divine glories of the Lord and contains the Chatushloki. But I like it says here, Iti Sri Mahabharate Shatashahasram Samhitayam Vayasikyam Bhishma Parvani Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvare Rajaguya Yogo Nama Navamodhaya. Says this ends the conversation of Sri Krishna and Arjuna and Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishad, the yoga scripture of transcendental knowledge, and the Bhishma Parva of the Srimad Mahabharata, the holy scripture revealed by Srila Vyasadeva in 100,000 verses. So the 9th chapter is giving Raja Vidya, which is the highest knowledge. This knowledge is more important than any other kind of study. And we thank all of you for joining us and giving us some inspiration to speak on Bhagavad Gita. It's very strange because if I read the Bhagavad Gita by myself, I will not come to the same conclusions as when I sit before a council of great souls such as yourself. Something deeper seems to come out. That's why the Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Sutta Goswami as he gives his version of the Mahabharata before the 10,000 sages of Naimisharanya. They ask him, well, what happened over there in Kurukshetra? Can you tell us? And so Sutta Goswami gives it a slightly different reading than the reading that's given by Vaishampayana Rishi before King Janamejaya at the snake sacrifice. Vaishampayana Rishi, he speaks the Bhagavad Gita, but it's colored by the association of saints there at the snake sacrifice of Janamejaya, just as when there's a higher company, pure saints, pure devotees, pure yogis, and they all want to hear, okay, tell us, what's the Bhagavad Gita? The reading takes on a slightly different color. Maybe it's the same words, but the tone of the music is a little different. So in the same way, sitting before Sita Devi Dasi in Kharkov and Vrindavan Chandra in Odessa, Sevarupa, and Tatiana Schneider, and Lilavati Didi, and Suchitra, and Tapanandini, especially there, and Merida Yucatan. Thank you very much for your help and your support and your kindness, because without you, I really would not have the juice to sit here and do this. I'm old, I'm losing my teeth, I can't see anymore, I'm becoming deaf. But somehow you guys give me some inspiration to carry on. I'm not trying to speak, I'm not imitating an Indian accent as I speak. I'm trying to, give my best interpretation according to my samskara. So thank you very much, Seva Rupa, Pranashish, especially with SOS Press. If I haven't spoken to you personally this week, it's because I'm involved in a lot of work at the university where I work, and it's been here in Mexico right now. It's incredibly hot, which is good news for the folks in Odessa and Russia. They're living in the cold countries, Ireland, with the snow and all. Over here in Mexico, it's just so hot, I can't work. So, Situshna Dukada, there's the misery of the hot and the misery of the cold, but somehow we're supposed to be transcendental to all that. It's very, very difficult to transcend our life circumstances. I think that must be Kyla. Is that Kyla? Yeah, hi Kyla. Haribol, good to see you. Anyways, I'm sorry I talk so much, but it's very, very difficult for me. There's so many deep and powerful ideas in just one shloka of the Bhagavad Gita. It's like an entire universe. And I want to get to the 10th chapter because that has the Chatushloki and the real hidden meaning of the Bhagavad Gita comes out there. But Apichat Sudaracha Ro, it's a very powerful verse. And it's a double-edged sword, because when you think of that verse, you think, well, okay, it means even if I do some bad things, I'm still a good devotee. But we're being asked not to apply that to ourselves, but to others. See, so if I see Pranashish walking down the street and he's chewing gum, and I go, oh, he's chewing gum. Gum is prohibited. Gum is not Vedic. You can't chew gum. Ew. I'm being told, no, don't think of him like that. Because when he's not here, we're all going to sit down and sing Ye Anilo Premadana and think about that great soul Pranashish who once, dusted the earth with the dust from his lotus feet. And, all of you is Vrindavan Chandra there in Odessa, someday we'll sing his glories. So anyways, I don't want to flatter you because one who flatters me is my enemy. So there's my talk for today. Any questions? I don't want to go on too long. It's been about an hour and a half, but any questions from anybody, or I'll just say adios and goodbye. Happy days, peace and love. I'll put the benediction.
Yes, if anybody has any question, simply turn on the sound or write the question in the chat. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna. So I see that we have no questions. Jai Mahayogi Prabhu ki Jai.
All right, Haribo.
Yes, Haribo. Thank you for this deep talk. We see you next week, and next week we will start the 10th chapter. Yes, Prabhu?
That's right. Yeah, so
Okay.
if you like the talk, subscribe to the channel, tell everybody you love the talk, tell your friends, tell your ma, tell your pa, we're going back to Arkansas.